I am very happy to meet all of you dear ones here. I wish you a wonderful day, and may peace and happiness dwell within you and your loved ones in your family. This is eternal light. As you have experienced before, the signs that appear in each of our lives are never random. God always knows how to guide each of us. The problem is that we cannot always distinguish what the signs are and whether they carry any meaning. Today, we will clarify 7 signs in the women chosen and guided by God. And don't forget to stay until the end of the video, because all of these signs are very important. Now, without wasting any more of your time, let's hit like and get started. In the thick darkness of life's corridors, where human beings move like shadows shackled by duty, desire, and an unnamed fear, there occasionally appears a strange figure, not strange in form or voice, but in the energy she carries. She walks through the crowd not to be noticed, but to see through each face, as if her eyes do not look into eyes, but into souls. Women like her do not belong to this age, nor to any age. They seem forged from an ancient light the modern world has long forgotten. In a world lost in noise, speed, and the invisible commands of reason, their presence is like a long, low note echoing from a place once called home, now nameless. People often call them strange, but that is merely the reflex of a world that does not understand what cannot be measured. For she does not speak the words trained from books, does not laugh to the rhythm of social niceties, and does not try to fit into the mold society has laid out. She, the chosen woman, does not try at all. She simply is. She is the moonlight in the dark, the silence in a world where no one dares to be silent anymore. She enters the lives of others like an unanswerable question, a daydream, or a strange breeze sweeping over souls weary from self-deception. It is difficult to describe her presence in human language, for it falls outside the framework of any logic. She does not persuade with arguments, does not captivate with garments, does not control with power, but causes transformation simply because being near her makes honesty unavoidable. Perhaps that is what the world fears about her, the honesty she silently demands, not by force, but because she is a mirror reflecting the most primal essence of life: unconditional love, pure intuition, and healing beyond words. This world, let us confess, is not built to contain souls like hers. Every civilization, ancient or modern, has been founded upon some form of power: material, institutional, violent, intellectual. But she belongs to none of these structures. She does not own, does not conquer, does not control. She touches, and something in the soul of another begins to tremble. Is it the sacred part that has slept too long? Or is it the part the world forced us to bury in order to survive? She, the chosen woman, does not come to teach like a master, nor does she appear like a deity upon a throne, but like an old cloth carrying the scent of memory. Memory of a time when humans still listened to the wind, spoke with fire, and understood the whispers of their own souls. In a world dominated by masculine energy, where reason is deified, control is mistaken for virtue, and action is exalted above emotion, she is a living antithesis, but not to rebel, only to remind, not to destroy, but to resurrect. I once saw such a woman enter a room full of laughter. She said nothing, but every gaze paused, every chuckle softened, as though some invisible gravity was altering the structure of the air. There was nothing specific to describe, no scent, no light, no sound, but something happened. No one said anything, but everyone felt it. Something sacred had entered. A small crack appeared in each person's defensive wall, where they had long confined themselves in roles, masks, and plans. And then when she left, the silence that remained felt like the residue of rain. No one was wet, but everyone was cleansed. The rise of such women is not a trend, not a movement. It is an ancient prophecy beginning to take form. Sacred texts have spoken of the end times, times when the final light would come from those considered the weakest. But it turns out, weakness is merely how the world names strength that wears no armor. The feminine, rightly understood, is not fragility, but connection, with self, with others, and with the Creator. While masculine energy builds and controls, the sacred feminine heals and revives. And the chosen woman is the embodiment of this connection. She is not perfect. At times she loses her way, is wounded, is angry. But in those moments, she does not lose herself, for within her is a red thread tied to the divine origin, as though each pain she endures is part of a mission woven from a past life. Pain, for her, is not for lamentation, but for understanding. And it is that very understanding which becomes the key helping others unlock their own doors, not because she wields power, but because she is the living proof that you can hurt and still love. You can be shattered and still heal. You can be imperfect and still be light. More and more people are beginning to sense their presence, not on stages, but in everyday moments. The gaze of a mother holding a crying child, the hands of a woman placed over a stranger's wound, or a gentle touch in a crowded place where no one notices. No one names them. They need no titles, no medals. But those who have ever been touched by them, even once, are never the same again. For a soul once illuminated by that sacred presence can never fully return to the dark. This world may continue to operate in chaos, may continue to worship reason, efficiency, and control. But beneath that surface, a silent current is beginning to strengthen. A wave of return to the self, to softness, to faith in the unseen. And the chosen woman, she is not just a sign of the end times. She is the doorway to a new era, where life is no longer survival but awakening. We may continue to overlook them, we may mock them as dreamers. But someday, when all we have built with reason collapses, when power no longer saves our hearts, when logic can no longer warm our souls, it will be they who lead us home, not with glory, but with the eternal, gentle stillness of unconditional love. And then we will understand they were always there, waiting for us to be ready to open our eyes. Sign 1. Different from within, not belonging to the world. They walk among crowded streets, yet they are never truly there. Their eyes may follow the flow of the crowd. Their steps may move in rhythm with time's relentless march, but nothing can conceal the silent isolation they carry, the sense that their soul still lives in another world, a world perhaps never charted on any map, or if it was, buried long ago in humanity's deep slumber. From childhood, while other kids reveled in the games of simulated power, in hollow chatter and social structures that repeat like mirages, these women quietly sensed their misplacement, as if every sound around them echoed from behind thick glass, as if they spoke a language no one cared to understand. Not because they were strange, not because they chose to be different, but because they were different. At the core, from a place deeper than memory, deeper than identity, from that unnamed space where words die and only the raw vibration of the soul remains. In a world where everything can be labeled, categorized, measured, and managed by the cold systems of logic like windowless filing cabinets, their presence is like a glitch in the system, a knot that cannot be untangled, a door opening to an endless corridor no one dares to enter. They are bodies carrying souls that never learn to submit, not out of arrogance, but because they simply cannot pretend, cannot blend into rituals designed to mask emptiness, cannot laugh at lies, cannot stay silent when their conscience trembles like an abandoned child. Their soul, like an off-key melody, resounds differently among the choir of the modern world. And it is within that dissonance that they begin to understand there is a calling from another realm, a realization that their difference is not a curse, but a code, etched into their very skin to awaken a sacred mission entrusted to them long before they entered this life. Just like Jeremiah, who as a child heard the voice of the Lord calling him from the wilderness within his soul, saying, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations." Jeremiah 1:5. These women, too, carry an inaudible selection. There were no angels descending, no lights shining from the heavens, only the constant whisper of estrangement, a solitude no one could explain. They did not come to belong. They came to remind, to expose what the world desperately tries to forget. They are like invisible pilgrims walking the narrow road to a truth no one dares to face, a naked truth that makes the world blush with shame. To vibrate on a higher frequency is not something mystical. It is a clumsy way of describing a state of being where the heart is led by intuition instead of being bound to society's blueprints. In a world constructed for power, control, and profit, they are programmed by something entirely opposite: unconditional love, boundless compassion, and a longing to connect with beauty, not the made-up kind, but the primordial beauty God saw when he looked upon the world and said, "It was very good." Genesis 1:31. In that connection, they reject the frivolous games, races for prestige, performances of identity, relationships built on compromises with falsehood. They cannot live a lie. They cannot endure shallowness. They crave truth, even if that truth costs them everything. They choose solitude over betraying their own soul. They choose silence over speaking what their heart does not believe. And like Mary, the mother of Jesus, who endured much gossip for carrying a child before marriage, but who treasured up all these things and pondered them in her heart, Luke 2:19. These women live with a quiet knowing. They seek no recognition. They demand no glory. They know, as if by a birth memory, that some sacred things can only blossom in silence, in waiting, in patient surrender. They do not resist the world with swords, but with absolute non-compliance. They are present, but never dissolved. They live within the world, but do not belong to it. Just as Jesus said in his final prayer, "They are not of the world, even as I am not of it." John 17:16. And if someone were to listen to them long enough, not with ears, but with the soul, they might hear the echo of an ancient memory, the call of a sacred covenant that was never revoked. These women, in their seemingly irredeemable otherness, are in truth the living signs of another order, a kingdom not built of bricks, but of spiritual vibrations, where love is the only law and truth the only language. They dwell between two worlds. On one side, the cold machinery of social systems, on the other, the gentle light of divine presence. And they cannot choose. They can only stand in the crack between two realities and bear witness to something no one sees, no one understands, but which everyone, deep down, has longed for. The world may call them lost. They may live their entire lives without being understood. But if anyone ever saw them praying in the night, not with words, but with breath, with tears, with every ache and hope in their being, they would know, these souls do not belong here. They are signals. They are thunder in clear skies. They are reminders that there is a deeper meaning beneath the masks of reality. And they carry that reminder in every cell of their bodies as a burden predestined not for rebellion, not for escape, but for testimony. And in that testimony, they awaken those who still dare to dream, who still dare to believe, who still dare to remember that not everyone is asleep under the tyranny of ticking clocks, that some carry within them a memory that never faded, a memory of another world, a world of truth, of love, and of God. Sign 2. Pain as a springboard for transformation. They walk through the dark alleys of life like nameless shadows, being stripped of all light, wandering in a space unseen and misunderstood. No one notices the wounds they carry, not because those wounds are too well hidden, but because their very existence is so strange, so far removed from the usual tone of the world. The chosen woman, a title even she dares not speak, lives as one crucified to an inescapable destiny. Pain comes to her not as an accident, but as a peculiar necessity in God's silent roll call. Loss, betrayal, abuse, they do not arrive as surprises. From the moment she opened her eyes to this world, it was as if she had been marked to taste every drop of its bitterness. And within that pain, a silent process begins. No one hears the cry inside her, not the wail of someone mourning, nor the lament of someone disappointed. It is the sound of a soul cracking open, echoing inward, not seeking comfort but awaiting absolute acceptance. The chosen ones, unlike the cursed, do not flail. They endure, not because they are weak, but because they understand. There is no way through the dark night of the soul except by walking straight into it. In the Old Testament, Joseph, the beloved son of Jacob, also journeyed through such darkness. Hated by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused and thrown into prison, yet he did not sink. Pain did not turn Joseph into a cynic, but molded him into an instrument in the hands of God. From the pit to the throne of Egypt, Joseph stands as a testament to a strange heavenly law. Pain does not destroy the chosen. It forges them into tools capable of saving a nation. Just as iron must be heated red hot before it is shaped into a sword, the chosen woman is thrust to the fire of life to shed all that is temporary, all that is superficial, all the empty labels society places on her like a curse. The dark night of the soul is not a moment of utter despair as many assume, but the time when all remaining masks are stripped away. In that night, there are no neon lights of false hope, no hands to hold, no mentors to guide. All collapses to make room for the absolute presence of God. And it is there, in that sacred desolation, that the chosen woman realizes her wounds were never meant to make her bitter, but to teach her to see every other soul as one also aching. From that place, compassion blooms like a wildflower, needing no rich soil, only a heart once torn open. Even Jesus, in his full humanity, walked through that night in the Garden of Gethsemane. He prayed until his sweat became like drops of blood falling to the ground, asking if the cup might pass from him. Yet he followed with surrender. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done. The chosen woman, in her own despairing darkness, is also invited to say those words, not with her lips, but with her whole being. And when she utters them from her soul, the furnace begins its work. The old self burns away, and a new, radiant being is reborn. But transformation does not bring immediate glory. It leaves behind scars, spiritual scars invisible to others, yet defining her entire existence from then on. She no longer resembles anyone else. She no longer laughs idly or speaks meaningless words to kill time. Her silence becomes proof of a war she survived. And because she has walked through hell, she no longer condemns anyone. She does not preach. She does not demand the world to change. She simply is, a small light in another's darkness, not through power, but through true presence. Like the Canaanite woman in Matthew 15, rejected not once but 3 times, even likened to a dog, she still bows and says, "Yes, Lord." But even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table. She does not argue. She does not demand recognition. She bows to the lowest place, and it is there she is lifted up. This is the lesson pain teaches the chosen woman. No one elevates you by reason alone. Only God lifts you when you humble yourself to the uttermost. She lives on, not because she has overcome pain, but because she has transformed it into the soil from which spiritual seeds can grow. Stolen dreams, broken loves, unfulfilled promises, all become the materials with which she builds compassion. She no longer prays to escape suffering, but to remain conscious in the midst of it. She no longer cries out for justice, only that mercy not be lost. And if anyone asks her about her life, she merely smiles, not because she is happy, but because she has ceased to hope in the easy happiness the world paints. She has found something deeper, quieter, holier, a new life, steady as stone, soft as water, needing no name to still endure. That is the absolute beauty of the chosen woman. Not her appearance, not her talents, but the light that radiates from a soul once crushed but never lost. And the most astonishing truth is this: when that pain is surrendered to God, it does not become trauma, but sacred fire. That fire does not destroy, it illuminates. It does not burn, it purifies. It does not blind, it reveals. And so she continues to walk the earth as one who has died and been raised again. She does not need to be understood. She does not need to be acknowledged. For from the beginning, she was never meant to belong to this world. Sign 3. Sensitivity to energy and strong intuition. In a world where everything seems to be defined to the point of absoluteness, what happiness is, what success means, what love looks like, even loneliness being trapped in outdated formulas, there still exist people who cannot simply walk the pavement of reasonableness. They feel everything so deeply it defies explanation. They don't live by facts or principles, but by a kind of invisible wave that slips through every logical structure, energy. No one teaches them to feel this way. No one forces them to see the sleepless nights behind a smile or a decaying life behind a pair of eyes. But they know. Not only do they know, but they are compelled to live with that knowing as if it were an inseparable part of their body. The chosen woman, the one with a healing spirit, a healer, an intuitive empath, is a being who can never fully rest within her own body, for her soul is constantly drawn toward frequencies that don't belong to this earth. She walks into a room and immediately senses something is off. No one is crying, no one is arguing, no visible trace of pain, yet the air feels like it's been drained of oxygen. The suffocation seeps from some invisible structure. Others don't notice a thing. They laugh, they talk, they exhale their human breath as if life is a never-ending party with no boundaries. But not her. Her heart reacts as if someone were squeezing it tight. Emotions that are not hers, anxiety, anger, despair, silent shame, sweep into her like a cold wind through a cracked door, and she has no choice but to become the vessel that holds them all. No one asked her to carry them. No one thanks her for doing it. But through some unspoken decree from heaven, she bears them. This is not weakness, as the world often claims. No, this sensitivity is not the fracture of the fragile, but a sacred gift disguised in a fragility no one desires to carry. The chosen one does not merely feel, she receives. Like a biological antenna, she picks up signals from layers of energy others don't even know exist. These signals have no language, no form, only vibration, like a string being plucked in a silent room without a musician. And that woman, she is the string. Jesus felt this too. As he passed through the crowd, a woman suffering from bleeding for 12 years touched his robe. No one noticed, no one saw, but he turned and asked, "Who touched me?" The disciples were baffled. Everyone was pressing in, but he knew a transfer of energy had just occurred. "For I perceived power had gone out from me." He knew. As simple as that. The chosen ones know too. They don't need proof, don't need reasons. They know when someone is smiling to hide tears, when a clean house is full of fear, when a gentle word carries a violent undertone. They don't want to know, but they do. And so they are often inexplicably exhausted. Not because they do too much, but because they carry too many layers of emotions that aren't theirs. A meeting can feel like a battlefield, a party like a slow torture. A simple touch can leave aftershocks. They live constantly trying to balance between a material world that pulls them down and an invisible light that lifts them up. And between those two poles, they are stretched like a drawn bow. That is why they so often return to nature, the only place where energy is balanced. Forests, oceans, wind, sand, these do not lie. They wear no masks, have no deceit, no empty glitter. In those places, the chosen woman can finally breathe like a normal being. But this intuition is not meant merely to endure. It's part of a sacred mechanism. It is given to serve humanity. Like the prophet Samuel, who as a child heard a voice in the night that no one else heard. Like Elijah, who perceived the still small voice, a form of God's message that didn't come through thunder or fire, but through trembling silence. The chosen ones are conduits for these wordless messages, not to become mystics, but to be bridges between heaven and earth, between what's forgotten and what must be remembered. This world is collapsing, not from a lack of information, but from a devastating lack of feeling. People live like rational machines, making decisions through algorithms, passing each other with hollow eyes. But the chosen woman cannot live that way. She must stop, she must tremble, she must ache. She must hear the cries of strangers' souls, and then she must do something, even if it's just a glance, a word, or simply being present. Her presence itself is a kind of healing. No preaching required, no analysis needed. Just like Jesus standing before Lazarus' tomb, he didn't explain death, didn't philosophize about life. He wept. And through that compassion, he made death retreat. "Lazarus, come out," just one sentence. But first there were tears. The chosen woman is the same. Her intuition is not vague. It's a heavenly mechanism through which the soul of another is recognized before they utter a single word. And even if she often finds herself in incomprehensible states, tired, lonely, depleted, this is not a sign of error. It's proof that she is using her gift properly. That gift is never comfortable. It keeps her from living superficially, from loving half-heartedly, from working just to survive. It demands her full presence, completely, deeply, truthfully. And that, in a world sinking into mass numbness, is the most miraculous seed God has planted in the human soul. Thus, the chosen woman, with her powerful intuition, with her sensitivity like a trembling mirror, is not someone wounded by the world, but someone chosen by God to heal it, piece by piece, through a presence no one may understand, no one may explain, but no one can deny. And if one day she feels too weary to continue, she only needs to remember this: God is still using her like a song that makes no sound. And that music, though silent, can awaken even the souls long asleep in eternal mist. Sign 4. Being misunderstood, shunned, and often called strange. There is nothing stranger than becoming your true self in a world that had already decided your shape long before you could speak. And that is the silent tragedy of chosen women. Not chosen for glory, but chosen to wander the wilderness of thoughts no one dares to think, to feel the soul's abrasion when trying to live truthfully among a crowd that only adores replicas. Ones that can be framed, sealed, and displayed behind glass like wax dolls. These women, with their quiet stance like the shadow of something yet to be defined, are always labeled as weird, hard to understand, troubled, as if their honesty were an act of violence against a pre-agreed order. And perhaps it is so. Their presence, without needing to make noise, still disturbs others because they live as though they no longer belong here, no longer under the control of those invisible gears society uses to crush all notions of true freedom. When they enter a room, the atmosphere changes, not because they intend it to, but because the stillness within them is a living indictment of the chaos within others. They don't know how to participate in hollow conversations about the weather, about fashion, or about new dishes. They want to speak of soul fractures, of strange dreams that wake them in the night, of the feeling of being tugged by an invisible hand away from the collective current. But no one wants to listen. And gradually, they become known as misfits, as people who don't know how to socialize, as too serious or a little crazy. And thus, their truth is buried beneath the sticky labels of prejudice, as if light must always be hidden behind a curtain, lest it blind those accustomed to darkness. But strangely, that is also the fate of all prophets. Jeremiah, who was thrown into a cistern for speaking the word of the Lord, lamented, "O Lord, you deceived me and I was deceived. You overpowered me and prevailed. I am ridiculed all day long." The bearer of light is always considered mad before the light they carry flares up in the nation's darkest hour. Elijah was called insane during the reign of apostate kings. Jesus, while preaching love, was called possessed. Even his own family once thought he had lost his mind. And so, these women today, those who cannot pretend, who cannot wear masks, are walking the ancient path of those sent by God without a certificate of social conformity. Sometimes, being rejected by one's own family is the deepest pain, for the place where we expect most to be ourselves is often the place where we are forced to become someone else. That woman may have once sat alone in her room, hearing the sounds of a family dinner echoing like a ritual to which she was no longer invited. She may have been called the difficult child, the dreamer, the one who doesn't get it. No one realized she was simply listening to another voice, a voice not heard through words, but resonating through every cell. And so she learned to be silent. She learned to write in journals instead of speaking aloud, to talk with trees instead of people, to send prayers into the air as if someone, though invisible, was still listening. This is not a form of dysfunction, but a state of presence that transcends the matrix, a state that goes beyond the social structure designed to prevent humans from asking the most fundamental question: who am I when I play no role in this script? That woman does not follow the beaten path, does not walk on well-paved roads. She may change jobs often, seem unstable by conventional standards, show little interest in what others call success. She is in search of something that cannot be bought, cannot be bargained for, the truth. And because of that, she is often misunderstood, disliked, even cursed. Perhaps she has been shunned by friends without explanation. Perhaps she once loved someone who couldn't accept her depth, someone who said she was too much, too exhausting, too serious. And when they left a void, not because she lacked love, but because she lacked someone who could touch that depth without fear. She has grown used to living on the edges, where few dare dwell, where light and darkness meet, where those rejected by the world can find each other and nod in recognition, knowing the password without speaking it. Being misunderstood to her is no longer an accident, it's an identity. As Jesus once said, "If the world hates you, know that it hated me first." The chosen are not chosen to be loved, but to become mirrors. And in those mirrors, people see their own falseness and rush to shatter them. But even when shattered, that woman remains light, with no recognition, no applause, only a faithfulness to the original calling, the one no one sees, no one hears, but she cannot ignore. She lives as though paving a way for a world that doesn't yet exist, a world where truth is not punished, where sensitivity is not seen as weakness, where souls can live fully in bodies that need no disguise. And so every rejection, every furrowed brow, every whisper behind her back is the consequence of her disrupting the old model. She is a disturber of the order, not by action but by presence, a crack in the structure, a quiet question mark in a long row of full stops. She doesn't need to declare anything because her very existence is prophecy. And on long sleepless nights, when her heart aches from loneliness and being misunderstood, she may whisper to herself, "I am not lost, I am just ahead." And heaven, though silent, is recording her every step. Every time she chose truth over compromise, every tear she hid so others could smile. Because in God's eyes, those who are called strange on earth are often the silent citizens of the kingdom of truth. Sign 5. A calling to heal, guide, and serve. It is difficult to articulate clearly, without being distorted by the limitations of language, that there are people born carrying a sentence. Not a sentence in the legal sense, but a kind of quiet destiny, where they are bound to a task no one assigned them, and yet one they cannot refuse. Such women walk among crowds with eyes both alert and distant. At a glance, there's nothing remarkable about them. But in their quiet presence, if one lingers long enough, a subtle tremor seems to emanate. Not like thunder, but like a soundless wave that touches the depths of the unconscious in those who stand before them. They are not famous doctors, pastors, or professors, yet somehow people seek them out for healing. Often, others don't even know what hurts, but still sit beside them, as if their soul instinctively recognizes a safe place, a hand capable of holding wounds even without seeing them. Strangely, their healing does not come from any specific method. There is no official name for it, no entry in a psychology manual. It comes from the way they listen without offering advice, from the way they look into someone's eyes and allow that person to see themselves, without fear. They are priestesses without thrones, prophets without manifestos, queens without courts. And like Esther in the Bible, such a woman may have first been a mere girl pulled into a game of power, but through silent courage, she becomes the one who saves her people with a single act, stepping before the king uninvited. Their leadership requires no title, no microphone, no stage. Wherever they are, the atmosphere shifts. But people don't easily notice this. These women often choose seemingly vague professions: art, education, energy healing, caregiving, spirituality, meditation. They don't cry out for revolution, yet everything they do breeds a nameless kind of revolution. A rebellion against the hardening of hearts, against the indifference of modern life. Like Moses, who refused the title of Egyptian prince to become the liberator of the Hebrews, they too reject ladders of fame to live fully in quiet service. Moses once trembled, saying he was slow of speech and tongue, and God did not mock him for that, because it was that very trembling that made him human enough to be chosen. And so is she. Not perfect, not transcendent, but full of the ability to carry another's pain without resentment. People come to her to unburden, to cry, to explain things they themselves don't fully understand. And she doesn't ask why. She just listens, as if every cell in her body was born to bear witness to the pain of others. That can't be learned from books. It is soul blood, an ancient instinct lingering from the days when priestesses sat under fig trees to speak with wandering spirits. Her presence is like a small candle in a dark room, not imposing light, but refusing to go out. Someone once told her, "When I'm near you, things seem clearer, though I don't know why." And she just smiled because even she cannot explain it. But deep down, she knows this is part of her calling, the part no one sees, no one applauds, but which must still be fulfilled, like a silent heartbeat within a living body. It is not always gentle. Some nights she feels utterly drained, as though she has carried someone else's sorrow. And in truth, she has. She lives between two worlds, one of jobs, daily bread, empty conversations, and another invisible world, where she senses cracks, unheard sighs, souls standing at the margins, unseen by most. And she cannot pretend not to notice. She cannot turn away. She must serve, not out of moral duty, but because of her nature. Just as Jesus, when he saw the crowd like sheep without a shepherd, was moved with compassion and began to teach them many things. This woman carries that same drive, a compassion that cannot be explained, a compulsion to help, to comfort, even at the cost of being misunderstood, used, or worn out. She does not seek a position, yet people always seem to look to her when they have nowhere else to turn. She doesn't preach theology, yet even the simplest of her words, sometimes just, "I understand," can make someone feel less alone. And because of this, she is a teacher without a podium, a healer without a clinic, a pastor without a church. She lives on blurred boundaries where roles and titles don't matter, only truth does. Truth so raw it hurts, and yet so real it saves. And strangely, the more she serves, the emptier she feels. Not because she lacks, but because she was made as a vessel, not to retain, but to transmit. Sometimes she prays not to ask for more, but to keep from breaking under the weight of the world pouring into her soul. She knows deeply that God does not choose the perfect for sacred work, but the humble. Like Mary, the young woman of Nazareth, who simply said, "Behold, I am the servant of the Lord," and became the bearer of the Savior. So is she, not loud, not showy, but wholly alive in her mission, as if it were air, essential, invisible, and vital. And if someone were to ask her, "Why do you do all this?" she would likely remain silent, because she knows there are no words to describe a mission etched into her very blood. And perhaps in that silence, they would understand, like hearing a song with no lyrics. And if they don't, that's okay too, because the mission of light is not to be understood, but to shine. Sign 6, a deep connection with nature and the universe. Chosen women live as though they are not merely individual beings, not just fleeting specks of dust in the stream of time. Though they carry within them a profound sensitivity to the world around, they do not feel alone in it. They know they are an inseparable part of a greater whole, a sacred web flowing through every patch of earth, every branch, every passing breeze, every drifting cloud in the sky. Their gaze upon the natural world is not one of mere observation, but of communion, of unity. They feel every breath of Mother Earth, every heartbeat of nature, as though each wave crashing on the shore is a reminder of the universe's immortality and of the interconnectedness of all living things, human, plant, and animal alike. To them, the stars, the moon, and the invisible winds are part of their very existence, not just elements of a lifeless expanse, but of a purposeful, living presence. When they walk through nature, every step upon the earth feels like more than just physical contact. It feels like an awakening. Beneath the starlit sky, they find peace in the silence of the night. The moon, like an old friend, is always there to light their path and invite them into another realm, a sacred space where every burden can dissolve into nature, where they become one with the larger rhythm of the universe. They are not merely wanderers beneath the moonlight, but participants in an eternal dance, a dance with nature, with creation, with the heavens. The whispers of the wind seem to carry messages from angels or departed souls, reminding them of a sacred awakening, of the mission they carry deep within. This is a profound connection, not only with nature but with the vast universe, a communion between human and all surrounding life. In this, they are not outsiders, but vital parts of the ever-expanding, eternal force. In the Bible, we see figures like these, those who found deep connection between themselves and nature. The image of the prophet Elijah in the Old Testament stands as a striking example. After fierce confrontations with the prophets of Baal, Elijah retreated into the wilderness, a desolate place devoid of people and worldly noise, where only the mountains and winds remained. In a sacred moment, a gentle voice called from the silence, asking him to come out and stand before the Lord. And when he did, a soft breeze passed by, and in that very breeze, he felt the presence of God. Not in roaring fire, nor in thundering storms, but in the stillness of nature. It was a wordless connection, an awakening, a realization that God is not only found in grand temples, but also in every breeze, in every rain, in every wave that laps the shore. Like Elijah, these women, gifted with delicate perception, find messages in the most seemingly ordinary aspects of nature. A butterfly fluttering by may signal a coming transformation. A sudden summer rain might signify purification, a cleansing of the soul. They understand that in every natural occurrence, a silent message is being sent. as though the universe is whispering to them truths that only those who truly listen can hear. This connection is not just a beautiful sentiment, but a deep awakening, a realization that everything from the stars above to the grains of sand below are spiritually linked. We are not separate, not apart from the cycles of the cosmos, but part of its continuous flow, part of the endless spin of time and space. These women are not merely visitors in green forests. They are guardians of nature's secrets, entrusted with the sacred duty to protect the balance between humanity and the natural world. They understand that their lives depend not only on personal survival, but on the coexistence of all other beings. They are protectors of the sacred essence within every tree, every wave, every gust of wind, knowing that every element of nature holds a spirit, a divine essence, and the loss of even one could disrupt the balance of the entire universe. And in this connection, they find peace. They do not need to seek peace from the outside, for they have discovered that within their deep relationship with nature lies the true source of life and serenity. Just as the teachings of the Bible remind us, when God says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest," these women find their rest in communion with nature, with the universe, and with all that surrounds them. Sign 7. Knowing who you are and no longer needing to explain. There are people, women, whose light never dims, even when they walk through the darkest clouds. They do not need to explain themselves, nor search for a reason to justify their existence in this world, because they are fully aware of who they are. Doubt no longer dwells in them. The inner storms questioning whether they are strong enough to survive, to be loved, or to be recognized have long been silenced. They do not chase the illusion of external validation, simply because they have found the highest form of acceptance within themselves, within the sacred self they have connected to. They no longer feel the need to explain anything, to please anyone, or to conform to societal expectations or the harsh scrutiny of others. They live authentically, powerfully, and lovingly, as though they themselves are the origin of love. Every action they take flows from an invisible source of light they have received. For them, self-awareness is not some vague concept, but a profound and unshakable understanding of their own essence. They have risen above the pull of the ego and conquered the doubts about their worth. They no longer ask others whether they are enough, because they have come to know that they are children of God, created with a divine purpose, and every step they take on this earth holds a deeper meaning than what meets the eye. This understanding of their sacred identity makes them unshakable, immune to external circumstances. It echoes the words God spoke to Jeremiah, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you." These words were not only for Jeremiah, they are a divine reminder to all who truly believe in their calling, that each person is created with purpose by design. In this awareness, they find true freedom. It is a rare kind of freedom, not from the world, but from within. They do not live to be liked, praised, or understood. The world may turn its back on them, may label them as different, but they no longer care. Why? Because they know exactly who they are. They do not need to explain themselves. All they need is to live in alignment with their true essence, to fulfill the mission that was predestined for them. This is the highest sign of someone who has fully embraced the role of the chosen one. They no longer seek acceptance from the world because they are wholly connected with their divine self, where there is no judgment, no need to be evaluated, only eternal gratitude and love. This quality is easily recognized in the women of the Bible, those who lived not for human approval, but for God's purpose. Mary Magdalene is one such woman. She was not only the first witness to Christ's resurrection, but also a model of repentance and restoration. Her life was not easy, nor was it socially accepted, but she lived true to herself, not for the affection or understanding of others, but out of pure love and unwavering loyalty to Christ. She did not seek the approval of those around her, even as many condemned or doubted her. Yet she stood firm, knowing that her mission was not to please the crowd, but to serve a higher purpose. Ruth, another shining example, chose to stay with her mother-in-law Naomi, leaving behind her homeland to journey into the unknown. She did not seek understanding or sympathy. She simply did what felt right in her heart. Ruth's actions weren't driven by social expectations, but by love, loyalty, and ultimately a commitment to a divine calling. And then there's Esther, the courageous queen who rose to save her people from destruction. She did not live in fear, nor did she act from a need to be liked or understood. Esther knew who she was, a queen placed in position for a divine mission, even at the risk of her life. Her firm belief in herself and her purpose allowed her to overcome every obstacle and become a timeless symbol of courage. These are women who did not need to explain themselves. They did not strive to please others or seek the world's approval. What mattered to them was living in truth, fully aware that they were chosen by God, not to be liked or understood, but to fulfill what had been divinely ordained. In a world full of judgment and expectation, they stood firm and affirmed their true selves. They lived uniquely and freely, without needing to justify anything to anyone, because deep down they knew they were walking in truth, and that alone was enough. Because of this, they were not just people living in the world. They were bearers of a greater mission, a mission that didn't need to be explained, only to be lived, through every action, every word, every decision. This deep understanding of their sacred identity turned them into movable souls, those who walk the predestined path without needing recognition or affection from those around them. There are women in this world, beings whose light seems never to fade, even as they walk through the deepest darkness. They are not those who seek attention, nor do they crave affection or admiration from the eyes of others. Yet the miracle lies in this. It is their strangeness, their quiet radiance, that stands as proof of the sacredness they carry within. These women were not born to showcase themselves, but to awaken other souls, those who are lost, those who suffer, so they may realize that they are not alone in this world. And if you feel like you are one of them, do not be afraid. Your difference, your uniqueness, is the clearest evidence of your divine nature. It often begins with being different. Chosen women often appear as misfits in this chaotic world. They do not follow the path society has paved, nor do they abide by the outdated rules humanity has created for itself. They do not seek harmony or alignment with the norms that the world lays out. And it is precisely this difference that makes them misunderstood, viewed as strange, even eccentric. They walk roads no one else dares to tread, and for that, they carry the weight of loneliness and alienation. But not everyone can understand that this is the beginning of a great journey. Following this difference comes sorrow. The pain does not only stem from the unfamiliar glances or the judgment of others, but from the deep loneliness in their own soul. When no one understands, when they must face indifferent or even contemptuous eyes, they learn to endure. They accept pain as part of life. These women never give up because they understand that in pain lies hidden strength. Like the Virgin Mary, standing beneath the cross, watching her son, Jesus, suffer every agony, she too knew that this sacrifice would open a new path, the path of salvation for humankind. This is pain transformed into power, the power to carry on with their mission. Gradually, these women become more sensitive to what's happening around them. They don't just feel their own pain, they begin to feel the pain of the world. Lost souls, broken hearts, these things pierce them deeply. And then they begin to understand that this sensitivity is the greatest gift they bear. Sensitivity is not a weakness. It is a direct connection to the suffering and longing of the world. They see pain in the eyes of others, even when no words are spoken. And so they begin to open their hearts, to reach out, to comfort, to lead. They are not only those who see, but those who heal. When they can bear no more, these women often find themselves cast out. They no longer belong to society, no longer fit in the communities they once were part of. They are isolated, pushed to the margins, like the prophets in the Bible, who were misunderstood, mocked, yet never gave up on the mission entrusted to them by God. Prophets like Jeremiah or Isaiah lived in solitude, surrounded by hatred and suspicion, but they did not quit, for they knew their mission was far greater than any judgment the world could impose. And in those very moments, they realized that their mission was never to seek acceptance from this world. Their mission is to redeem, to lead lost souls back into the light. They do not live for themselves, but for a higher purpose. That is why they feel a deep connection with the universe, with nature, with the divine energies surrounding them. They realize they are not just part of this world. They are part of an invisible cosmic network where everything is interconnected, where every soul plays a vital role in God's grand design. In those moments, they no longer feel alone. They know they are not alone. They feel God's presence in every breath, every heartbeat. And finally, they arrive at a place of unshakable identity. No more fear, no more confusion, no more worrying whether they are good enough or worthy. They know who they are. They have recognized their mission in this world. They no longer need to explain themselves or prove anything. Their very presence is a testament to the divinity they carry within. They understand they are not here to perform, but to awaken other souls, to help them recognize the light hidden within their own hearts. If you feel you are one of them, do not be afraid. Your difference is the proof of the sacredness you carry within. Live true to your essence. Live with unconditional love. And never forget that you are part of a grand design, a plan you may never fully understand, but one you can always trust.